Hello everyone. I know it's been some time since I did a video, that you can blame it on my video games because I've been busily playing XCOM Enemy Within and Divine Divinity Original Sin, so I haven't had a lot of time to do any knitting. So I thought I wanted to do something before winter was over. In fact, I think maybe we'll be well into spring before this piece would be done. And what I wanted to do was, you know, these kind of sweaters where you have the long, the back would be longer than the front. But because I'm going to experiment with the type of stitch, you know, it's a knit 3 purl 2 stitch. I can't really tell you the measurements because we'll be using this loom, the 41 peg round loom. But since we're going to be heavily using this stitch, which is the knit 3 purl 2 stitch for the bottom and all along the sides, you know, the longer bit of it, you know, and the front will only have the front bit for about 3 inches of the same knit 3 purl 2 rib, but the back will have a longer bit of about 6 inches of that same stitch, you see. So the fact of the matter is that this kind of a stitch, this knit 3 purl 2 stitch, what happens is that when you do that kind of a stitch, the garment that you're making or whatever piece that you're making will become narrower. It won't be like if you're doing twisted stocking net or ordinary purl or knit stitch, you can basically get the gauge for this is will be about 19-20. But when you do a stitch like this, you can't be sure how much you can get. See, so we can't really on a 41 peg loom manage to do this as a whole back and a whole front. That means basically you have to split it up into 4 parts, 2 front and 2 back, and then of course another 2 sleeves. And to do this you have to get the gauge for your loom of the knit 3 purl 2 stitch. So you have to work maybe about 20 pegs for about 4-5 inches, so that you can see how much the knit 3 purl 2 gauge is. I'll explain that to you in a minute. Okay, what I was talking to you about is that you take this kind of a loom and then you cast on maybe about 25 stitches, all right, half the loom. You cast on 25 stitches and you work your knit 3 purl 2 all over it for about maybe about 6-7 inches, you know. After that, take it off, leave it for a few hours so that it can settle, because usually when you work on a stitch on a loom, what happens is that the final measurements cannot be decided immediately how much it will be. See, so what you need to do is let the garment rest a bit and then you measure it. So once you get the measurement for the 25 stitches and over the 7 inch, you have gotten yourself a gauge. Now once we have done that, I'll be able to come back and tell you what gauge it was for my yarn. You see, this is the yarn I'll be using. It's very, very thick, you know, which is one of the reasons why I cannot use the Serenity loom. And I suppose some of you have got the knitting board loom also, but I doubt it can handle something like this. You see, it's rather thick, which is why we'll be using the 41 peg round loom, which can handle this single strand very easily. This one is 80% wool and 20% acrylic. It uses a needle of between 12 and 15, which is very big needles, you know, for either knitting needles or crochet hooks, 12 to 15. So this is a very, very big gauge yarn, you know, and it's lovely, isn't it? Don't you think it's absolutely gorgeous? I adore this. I don't know, what do you call this? Rust red? Maroon? I don't know, but it's lovely, isn't it? With this shot in gold all over. Beautiful. Anyway, so this is going to be the yarn that we will be using. Now I'll explain the pattern and then I'll show you how to take the gauge for the knit 3 purl 2. Now when we do this pattern, what we'll be doing is that we'll be dividing this into half. So you'll be working 12 by 30 and here you'll be working again 12 by 24. So the front is actually 6 inches shorter than the back. The back will be. Now the 6 inches, don't have to worry, because you see the 3 inches you'll be doing here will be the knit 3 purl 2 rib, and there'll be 6 inches of this. But this 6 inches will actually not be connected to this, you see. Only 3 inches of it will be connected to this part, and 3 inches of it will be outside, you see. So it'll be like a flap at the back, you know. You have this irregular back and front pullover kind of look, you know, this thing has. So here we have the neck measurement. The neck hole, the space for the neck is 7.5. The shoulder seams are 10.5 each, also the same for the back. Now it's a V-neck pullover sweater. So what you do is that we'll be splitting them into 4 bits. So after I have, first I have to roll this into a ball, and I've worked the gauge. I'll come and show you how, for my yarn, this particular type of yarn, what the gauge was, and then we'll continue from there. If you ever wondered how do you get a ball like this from a skein like this, first you got to take it apart, just here, but don't cut off. Remove the piece of paper that holds it together, but don't take out these yet, okay? Open it out, and it should open out. Okay. Now, see? Can you see? It's been tied up like that, no? And you can see the center here like this, no? You take it and you put it at the back of a chair. Over the chair like that. Okay? Okay. And then you remove the knot that holds it together. Here, cut off all these, and you can start rolling it into a ball from there. Okay, now that I have rolled that skein, taken out the skein and rolled it into a ball, humongous ball might I, now you just cast on any method that you want. You cast on onto the, you can either do the E-wrap cast on or whatever cast on, it doesn't matter, because we're going to take it out later. This is only meant for the gauge. Work a knit 3 purl 2 for about 7 inches over 25 pegs. Okay, here we have the sorry, I'm going to have a little bit of problem all the time clearing my throat because I've got a reflux, so it's affecting my throat, you know, so I have to keep on clearing it. I've done a chain cast on. So what you do is you work the first peg I always miss, you see. So you work 2 knit, 2 purl, then 3 knit, 2 purl, 3 knit, 2 purl, 3 knit, 2 purl, 3 knit, 2 purl. Then you purl the purl stitches on the way back, and you knit the knit stitches. So purl, 3 knit, and go on like that, and do that for 7 inches. Okay, I've done 6 inches. I didn't do 7. Now I'll just take it off the loom. You can just remove it. You don't have to bind off or anything. Just remove it, leave it, and then you can measure how many inches and how many rows, how many, you know the stitches is 25. So 25 stitches, you can measure the length of it. And here will give you the number of rows that 6 inches gives. Okay, I've taken it off the loom and I let it rest for a while. So this is about 6 inches. I didn't do 7. It should be enough. So this is over 25 pegs. I got 9 inches for 25 pegs. So what you do is you write down this thing. So you got 25 pegs is equal to 9 inches. Right? This is after the thing has rested, you know. So this is what you get. About 9 inches is how much you will get for 25 pegs. So 41 pegs will give you that is the whole number of pegs that you have. If 25 pegs give you 9, 41 multiplied by 9 divided by 25 will give you 14.76 inches. So it's about 14.76 inches. You can put it at 14 and a half like that. Okay, so 41 pegs will give you 14 and a half. So definitely when you do this kind of a pattern, there's no way. You see, the difference is this: when you did the what is the name, twisted stocking net, you would have gotten around 18, 19, depending on how large your gauge is, you know, depending on how loosely you knit and how thick your yarn is. You might get about 19. Sometimes you even can get up to 20, depending also on the type of stitch that you're using. But this one, as you can see, you will only get up to 14 and a half, because 25 pegs already gave you 19. So there's no way you can make a 24 inch on the 41 peg without splitting it into 4. So that's why you're going to have to do it in 4 bits. So now that we have the gauge for the knit 3 purl 2, we can now start on the back. Okay, as I was pointing out earlier, we have gotten the measurement for the ribbing, which is the knit 3 purl 2, as giving you for 41 pegs. It will only give you about 14 and a half, 14 and 3/4 at most, you know. But you can't, but the pattern is different. You see, the pattern, as you can see here, it is sloping upwards. It slopes upward and it becomes wider at the top. The top is 10 and a half here, 10 and a half, that's 21, plus 7 and a half, that will give you 28 and a half, the measurement here. So from 24 it goes up to 28 and a half. So that's 4.5 inches increase at the top. Half of it will be 14.25 here and 14.25 here, giving you 28 and a half when you combine it. So if you're only doing the knit 3 purl 2 throughout the whole garment, then you can use this gauge. You see, the one that said 25 pegs is 9 inches, but you won't be doing that, because for 9 inches you will be doing the ribbing only on the side, which is about 3 inches here and 3 inches here. You are increasing that all the way to 9 inches. But the center bit for 18 inches will only be worked in rib for 3 inches. So when you join the back and the front together, what happens is that the front has only 3 inches of rib here. Alright? Now the back will have 9 inches of ribbing. The 9 inches at the side only, because the reason why we have the ribbing running along the side is because this flap will be lying at the back and you don't want it to curl. So you can't convert from the ribbing to stocking net stitch immediately after the 3 inches, because there will be curling. So you continue with this knit 3 purl 2 all the way up to 9 inches. 6 of those inches will be lying without it being joined to the front, because there's a difference between the back is 30 inches and the front is 24. So there's 6 inches where the back will not join to the front. And 3 of the inches that is taken up by the ribbing in front will also not be joined, because we will only join after the ribbing to the back. You see, because we want also the front to have a kind of a part where it goes into a V, you know, where the back is longer and the front is shorter. And then you leave part of it joined like that, and then you start joining it towards this part, you know, so you'll have a bit of a gap. And that makes it look a little bit more attractive, you see. So after the 3 inches, for 21 inches, you will join it to this, you see, because this whole thing is 30 inches, and for 21 inches, the back and the front will be joined. So that's why you have a 9-inch ribbing that is done. So the rest of it here all will be twisted stocking net, you see. So at some point, you have to continue the gauge using the normal gauge, which is like 19 inches. You can get about 41 pegs, which is for the twisted stocking net. So if you want 14.25 on each half of it, is about 31 pegs. As you can see, 31 pegs for the twisted stocking net can give you up to 14, whereas here it takes 40 pegs for you to get almost the same measurement if you were to use the knit 3 purl 2. So because we are only doing 3 inches of the knit 3 here, we will halfway through we will take the conversion into the twisted stocking net. So anyway, I'll as we go along, I'll tell you exactly at which point at which measurement we will be converting back into the twisted stocking net gauge. Initially, we will start with the knit 3 purl 2 gauge. So we cast on, we're working the back first, so we cast on 34 pegs to work the first bit of 12 inches, and as we go along, we will do the increases and I will explain that. And remember earlier I was saying that you have to gradually increase the sides. And since we are splitting it into half, you'll have to do the gradual increases on one for each side. But the stocking net uses only 31 pegs for you to get to 14.25, you see, and the knit 3 purl 2 for 34 pegs you only get 12 inches. So here you need 31 pegs to get to 14.25, and here you have 34 pegs. So there is actually less pegs on the stocking net, so it won't be necessary for you to increase anything. You just keep the number of pegs, and if you want, actually you might have to just reduce a couple of pegs to get it down to maybe 32. So don't do any reductions. I think it will work out naturally as you work the piece. So there's no need for you to do any increases because of the nature of the ribbing that uses more pegs than what the twisted stocking net. So we'll just work it without the increases. Now, okay, here, excuse me, I laugh so much watching the QI series and Stephen Fry. I think my voice is kind of gone. What I wanted to point out was when you are doing this ribbing at the bottom, and then you're going to change it up here to the part where you do the twisted stocking net again. Now, you see, when I started this, I started with a this side 3 knit and then 2 purl and all the way down, ending with just 1 purl here because it's 34 pegs, you see. So I didn't get 2 purl at the end. So I decided for this round that my 9-inch bit would be on this side here, okay? So this is the part that's going to go up all the way with the extra ribbing done for 9 inches. And here I will be doing it in twisted stocking net from now onwards, you see. So this is the part that's going to be the edge. And this is the part that's going to be in the center where you're going to join it to the other, exactly mirroring this one with the ribbing that's the 9-inch will be going on the reverse side. Now what I wanted to say is that because you're joining it here and here you're joining it to the part that is got ending with knit stitches here, right? So it's perhaps advantageous for you when you do the other side for you to think about this join, you see. So if you were to add on another 3 knit stitches, you will get a very big difference here, you see. Suddenly with the 2 purl here, and then you have 5, well almost 6, because actually there's 3 here. You'll get a very large knit bit, you see. So you shouldn't have to have that. So you have to make it such that you need to end this with a purl. So when you do the other side, keep that in mind, and the part that is going to be joined together, make sure that it ends in purl, so that when you join them, they don't look awkward, you know. Suddenly when you wear it, you'll have a huge bit of knit 5 stitches of knit, which is going to look very bad, you see. So for this particular bit, try and keep that in mind, because the side doesn't really matter, is you're not going to be able to see that, but the center you'll definitely be able to notice if there is a huge bit with just the rib, that is going to be a huge bit just done in knit without the pearl coming in between. So make sure that you get a pearl inside here and then the rib. So keep that in mind when you do this bit. I mentioned I would be telling you where you're supposed to start with the stocking net, alright? After you've done 3 inches, you can start doing the twisted stocking net for the center. This is the center, and you do it all the way. No, sorry, this is the center. Hang on, let me show you. This is the center, okay? Now, you do twisted stocking net all the way, except here. When you reach, mark it with something, you know, where you're supposed to continue with the 9-inch part. So 6 more inches of the ribbing will be done. Mark it so that you don't accidentally do twisted stocking net when you reach this point. So you will start after 3 inches. When you're returning, you start your twisted stocking net, go back, and when you come back here, you do 2 pearl, 3 twisted stocking net, and the final pearl at the end. Alright, so that's how you do it. And we will come back when we have to shape the neck, which is about here, 1 inch from the top. So at about 29 inch we'll have to do the shaping for the back neck. I'll show you anyway halfway how it will look, because at 9 inches everything will become twisted stocking net. So and then we will go on for the rest of the 21 inches in twisted stocking net. Okay, now we're going to work this part of the back, the half the neckline. We are working on half the neckline. All right, here, half the neckline. So it's extremely important that you keep in mind where your 9-inch rib is. So this is the amount that I have worked so far, and keep in mind where your 9-inch rib is. So let's have a look at that. Now my 9-inch rib is on my right. So when I do the decreases on top, 1 inch away from the very end. Okay, so the drop is only 1 inch from the very top. Okay, it's 1 inch from the very top, the drop. So since it's 1 inch, 30 minus 1 inch is 29. So at 29 inches you have to stop, because you have to work the neckline. You have to cast off for this part. And you will have to calculate, because the neck is 7.5, so you have to cast off for 3 3/4 of an inch. That is the amount that you have to cast off. Make sure that if your ribbing, your 9-inch ribbing is on your right, that means you're working on this side of it and not this side. When you're doing half, if you're working on this side, make sure that you end with the length of yarn on your left, so that you can work the decreases at the 29-inch point. Okay. Now 3.75 is half of this measurement here, the 7.5. 3.75 is about 8 pegs. How do I get 8 pegs? 19 inches is 41 pegs, which was the measurement for the twisted stocking net, the gauge, you know. That is the usual measurement that you can get from thick yarn working on the round loom with 41 pegs. You get 19 inches is 41 pegs. So if you want 3.75 is 3.75 multiplied by 41 divided by 19, which will give you around 8 pegs. It gives you about 8.1, but you don't have a 0.1 peg, so it's about 8 pegs. So what we have to do is cast off 8 pegs here. So the important thing is that once you reach the 29-inch point on your garment, that your yarn must be on the left if your long ribbing is on your right. So here is where your yarn should be coming out from. Okay, so now you're going to work these stitches off. This is actually like a normal cast off, you know. So how do you work a normal cast off? You work the second stitch from the end. This stitch from the end. You work it the normal way that you would a twisted stocking net. Wait, hang on, it's not very clear. Okay, now this is perhaps a little, hopefully it's a little clearer. Now this is your last stitch, okay? Now you work the next stitch in twisted stocking net, not the first stitch, huh? Then you take this, the stitch that you just worked, put it back onto the last stitch. Now the idea is always removing the last stitch, you see. So that stitch has to go over. If you're confused as to which stitch you should be working, always remember that the stitch that is in the subsequent peg must stay on top so that it will remain. See there? Okay, you removed that one, and this stitch that came from here is still there. Now take it, put it onto the next peg. Now work the next stitch again in twisted stocking net. This is a very, and make sure that you don't make it too tight, the cast off. We don't want a neckline that is puckering up, you know. Okay, the second stitch. Do this 8 times until you have reduced 8 pegs. Okay, and that will form your neckline. And then you work the rest of it in twisted stocking net until you reach 30 inches. Just to show you how the cast off looks like. You see, it has to be smooth, no puckering, so don't make it too tight, okay? So far I've removed, because my first peg was not used, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 2 more stitches to do. I'll show you since I'm doing 2 more stitches. This is the stupid twisted stocking net that I'm doing. Always the second peg from the end. The last one. And you have cast off 8 pegs. Alright, 8 pegs have been removed. So there you have it, 8 pegs. This is part of your neck, the back neck. Okay, now that you've finished you've cast off here, right? So you're left with the remaining pegs here. Work them exactly like you did the twisted stocking net for another 1 inch, just 1 inch, bringing the total length of the back to 30, and then you cast off. So you would have done one part of the back, all right? So you would have done half the back. Now work the other back, and remember to place the 9-inch ribbing on your left this time if you work the first part on the right. Make sure that they are on opposite sides, and also the shaping of the neckline must also be on the opposite side. Plus, I also explained to you the importance of working the rib in such a way that it will, when you join the 2 backs together, there will be an actual gap where there is a purl. You can either start with 2, instead of doing 3 knit, you start with 2 knit and then 2 purl, 3 knit, 2 purl, like that, so that you can end with a purl. Alright? Okay, here is the neck cast off, and here is the 1 inch that I've worked. So I'll be doing the normal cast off now for the rest of the stitches, and I would have finished with one side of the back, half the back. And I I did the 1 inch for me was 4 rows, including the neck cast off. The row that I did the neck cast off, 4 rows I worked, ending on the same edge as the neck cast off was. The neck cast off here, and here is my yarn. So it ended on the same edge as the neck cast off was. But of course I've got thicker yarn, you see, so it all depends on what kind of yarn you're using. You may of course be on an odd row depending on how thick your yarn is. Now I always love it when my calculations are correct, exactly, okay? That's 14 3/4, which was supposed to be exactly half of the back, 14 3/4 inches. Isn't that marvelous? Okay, here, you see this? This is the back, and this is the 1 inch more that we worked, and then we cast off. I know I gave a very little small tail here, not even enough to join anything, because I think I might suffer from an acute shortage of yarn as usual. You know, here I am giving everybody pompous advice about being careful about not running out of yarn, and I inevitably always run out of yarn. But you see, I wanted to show you, this is where, well, okay, this much of it, from here to here, where it ended, here, all the way up to here, was another skein. So it took one whole skein to work the back, plus a little more, that part here, from here to here, of another skein to work this. Okay? Now, we'll come back and I'm try and explain to you again the part about the rib. Okay, now I'm going to explain to you the reasoning behind the part where when we join here, okay? This is the part where we did the extra 9 inch of rib, and this is the part where we're going to join to the other back part. So the idea is to have more pearl here, you see. So when you start off, when you cast on the amount that you did for, like the first part I showed you, when you cast on, make sure that you're ending with a knit, one knit at the end. So there will be one knit at wherever the point your last stitch is, that should end with a knit, and the 2 preceding stitches should be a purl. So arrange it in such a way that you can end it with 1 knit and 2 purl. So that the 2 purl, the knit stitch will be used to join it to this stitch here, and the purl will be apparent, you see, because here otherwise if you just add in the 3 of these stitches here, if you have knit stitches, it will become unusually long, the knit part. So keep that in mind. End with a knit and 2 purl, so that you can have the knit joining to this corner here, and the purl will then form a ridge, a downward slope, you know, like here you see this, the knit forms the ridge, and the valley is formed by the purl. So you want a valley here. After the join will be part of the knit stitch, but then after that you will have the valley. You can't have 3 knit stitches here, because then it will look like that big and it will look awful. So after you have the join making it look like another knit, you will have the 2 purl stitches coming after that to make up that bit. So try and arrange your knit and purl to end with a knit and 2 purl. That means you end it with 2 purl and a knit, the last 3 stitches. Okay, you know, when I was telling you about the joining bit, when I said that, remember that it must look in the center. There mustn't be a part where you have too much knit without the purl. You see, this is one side and this is the other. So when you join them, this will look like it's 3 knit. And here you have the purl, and here you have the purl. So when you join it, it looks nice. It looks like a continuation with the correct triple knit and double purl. Hope you understood that. Okay, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is the front. After you have worked the 3-inch rib, after you've cast on 34 pegs, like the back, you cast on 34 pegs and you work the, okay, here, you work the rib for 3 inches of knit 3 and purl 2, and taking care to match the sides like I explained to you before on the back. You have to do the same thing in the front, so that when you join it with the mattress stitch, there will be a continuity and you will notice nobody can tell that you've actually joined 2 parts, you know, to make a whole front. Now what you do is that after you finished doing the 3-inch rib, then you carry on and work it in twisted stocking net like you did for the back. But when you reach the 10-inch point, you will have to make the decreases for the left and the right. Now, since you're working one side first, you will start the first decrease at the 10-inch point. You'll have to decrease 8 pegs because, again, you're dividing this 7.5 into half, which will give you 3 3/4. 3.75 is about 8 pegs. So 8 pegs, you do the first peg here, you'll have another 7 pegs over 14 inches. Which means you can do them every 2 inches. But the last decrease, you have to do it 1 inch before the top. You do that because you don't want the last increase to be where the shoulder seam is. So you do it 1 inch below. So everything else you can bring it up every 2 inches, but the last decrease you do it 1 inch before the top. And that will, you do it both sides, left and right, and that will finish your front. And then we will discuss the sleeves. Hopefully I have enough yarn for that. Getting a bit worried because, you know, as usual, I'm always chronically running out of yarn. After all the advice I give everybody, oh, be sure you don't run out of yarn and everything, and I'm always suffering from this. Okay, I'm going to give you the, because I told you that you're going to have to do the decreases when you start at 10 inches, you're going to have to start doing the slope. So one slope will be on the right and the other one will be on the left. And you will do them at 10 inch, 12 inch, 14, 16, 17, 19, 21 and 23. This is to make sure that you don't do the last decrease on the 24th inch. Okay, once you finish both the left and right sides of the front, we will do the sleeve. You cast on for 13.5 and you work it for 14 inches, ending with a width of 8, and you work it in 3 knit 2 purl. Okay, what you need to do is that you cast on 38 pegs, which is 13.5, because same formula, we had 34 pegs equals 12 inches. So you want 13.5. 13.5 multiplied by 34 divided by 12 will give you 38 pegs. So you cast on 38 pegs. You start from the top. In my case, I started from the top because I don't know how much yarn I have, you see. So I can't start from the bottom. Work 3 pegs in knit and 2 pegs in purl. 3 knit 2 purl. Work it down all the way to the end, and here you have to reduce 16 pegs. That means 1 peg on each side, 8 times you have to reduce. So you can reduce them every 2 inches, and perhaps towards the end you reduce over 3 inches 2 stitches, and that way. And remember, again, don't do the last stitch at the where the sleeve ends. Do it before, 1 inch before, at 8 inches, which is 22 pegs. So 38 minus 22 pegs is 16 pegs. So that's 1 peg on each side. 8 times will give you, 8 times 2 will give you 16 pegs. And that is the sleeve. And then we'll come back and I'll show you how to join it up. Okay, the mattress stitch is essentially, let's talk about the part where we're doing it with the knit stitch. This is the knit stitch. Now if you pull apart the knit stitch, in between, you will come across this bridge here. There are all these bridges, you know, in between the stitches. Right, actually there are several videos on YouTube that show you the way to... So basically what you have to do is you have to pick up these bridge stitches, this one here, and you connect it to the other side's bridge stitches. And after a few rows of doing it a few rows, then you tighten it. Don't tighten it initially. Okay, now I show it to you. I'm just going to thread a contrasting yarn so that you can see how it's done. Alright, now I'm going to only show you how to do the part where we are doing the bridge stitch for the knit. If you want to find out how to connect side stitches, there is also mattress stitch for that. Now here there is no bridge stitch. In between there is a bridge stitch. Now you have to pull it apart, then only you can see the bridge stitch in between. And here also there is a bridge stitch. I don't think there's a bridge stitch in between the last stitches, Okay. So what you do, I'll just show it to you using the bridge stitch that is here, that is very obvious, Alright. You go through the first bridge stitch here. Actually, I'm terrible at showing you this, You should probably get a better instruction from the net. Then you go to the other side, you match up the sides together, and you pick up the bridge stitch from the other side. Then you go back and pick the next bridge stitch. Next bridge stitch. Then you come back over this side and pick up the next bridge stitch. You don't worry that it's loose, You will pull it apart after a few stitches. Pull it together. All I'm doing is picking up the bridge in between the two stitches. Now, I've done a few. Now you just pull it together. See, when you pull it together, as you can see, I pulled it together. You see, you can't even see the stitch. And now they look like they are together. This is where I did the stitching. Okay? That's how you do the mattress stitch. For joining, after you have done the mattress stitch and joined the front two pieces together and the back two pieces together, you join the shoulder seams there. Match the shoulder seams, they should match exactly. And then after you've sewn both the shoulder seams, you just join the sleeve to the body. The sleeve is only 14 inches because the pullover is very, very long, the shoulder. It slopes all the way, it sort of droops all the way to mid upper arm, you see. So that's why you only need a 14-inch sleeve. After you've joined the sleeve, the pullover will be done. And you can neaten the sides by doing it with one, the neck line. You can neaten it with one row of single crochet. Well, I hope you enjoyed this pattern. Happy looming! It's really an oversized jumper, so if you want, perhaps you shouldn't use such thick yarn if you're doing this pattern, because maybe it may drape better. So think about that when you're doing it.